What if your biggest obstacle isn't real, but just a mental illusion? This audiobook will shatter your hidden limitations and unlock your full potential. Reinvent yourself. Introduction. You've tried it all. The morning routines, the productivity hacks, the vision boards, the affirmations, the carefully crafted goals. You've read the books, attended the seminars, downloaded the apps, and followed the experts. Yet here you are, still feeling trapped in a life that doesn't quite fit, like wearing someone else's clothes that never quite settle comfortably on your shoulders. Each new technique brings a flash of hope, a momentary surge of motivation that inevitably fades, leaving you wondering if real transformation is even possible. The weight of unfulfilled potential sits heavy, and beneath the surface lurks a growing suspicion that something fundamental is missing from your approach to change. What if the very way you're viewing transformation is what's keeping you stuck? What if the walls that seem to constrain your life exist primarily in your perception rather than in reality? This isn't about adding another layer of techniques to your already overwhelming collection of self-improvement strategies. It's about seeing through the invisible barriers that have kept you contained in patterns of limitation. In the next 90 minutes, you'll discover something far more valuable than new methods or motivation. You'll learn the art of perspective alchemy, the ability to transmute perceived limitations into catalysts for growth. This isn't positive thinking or forcing yourself to see the bright side. It's about recognizing how the lens through which you view your challenges fundamentally alters their nature. Think of your current perspective as a perceptual prison, a construct of beliefs, assumptions, and interpretations that feel solid, but exists only in your mind. Like a person who has lived so long in a darkened room that they've forgotten about the existence of windows. You may have become so accustomed to your limitations that you've forgotten they're self-imposed. This book offers a different approach. Instead of giving you more tools to cope with your constraints, it shows you how to recognize the illusory nature of those constraints themselves. You'll discover how the very challenges that seem designed to break you actually contain the raw materials for your reinvention. The journey ahead requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands a willingness to question everything you believe about who you are and what you're capable of achieving. But unlike approaches that require months or years of dedicated practice, these insights can begin shifting your reality the moment you truly grasp them. Are you ready to discover what becomes possible when you step beyond the boundaries of your perceptual prison? The door has always been unlocked. You just haven't realized it until now. Chapter 1. The Gardens We Unknowingly Tend. Every morning you wake up in a garden, not the kind with soil and physical plants, but one far more influential in shaping your life. This is the garden of your mind, where thoughts, beliefs, and self-perceptions grow as naturally as wildflowers after rain. But unlike a physical garden, where you can clearly see what's growing, this mental landscape has become so familiar that its features have turned invisible to you. What if the very thoughts you believe define you are actually just plants you've unknowingly tended until they've overgrown your mental landscape? This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to believe empowering thoughts. It's about recognizing how your current sense of self, your limitations, capabilities, and core beliefs grew from seeds planted long ago, seeds you may not have consciously chosen. Your identity garden has been cultivating itself through years of repeated thoughts, experiences, and interpretations. Like a garden left unattended, certain beliefs have taken deep root while others have withered away. The limitations you accept as unchangeable facts about yourself are often nothing more than well-established thought patterns that have grown so familiar, you've stopped questioning their presence. Think about fear of public speaking, belief in your artistic abilities, or convictions about your capacity for leadership. These aren't innate truths about who you are. They're cultivated beliefs that have grown strong through years of watering and attention. Each time you reinforce these beliefs, you're essentially irrigating them, ensuring their continued growth and dominance in your mental landscape. What makes this process so powerful and so challenging to recognize is its self-perpetuating nature. Your identity garden doesn't just contain your beliefs. It actively filters your experiences to maintain its current arrangement. Like a physical garden that creates its own microclimate, your mental landscape attracts experiences that validate existing beliefs while filtering out contradictory evidence. This is why simply trying to think more positively often fails to create lasting change. You're attempting to plant new seeds without first addressing the overwhelming growth of limiting beliefs that have claimed your mental territory. These established patterns will naturally overshadow and choke out any new growth unless you become aware of their presence and influence. The first step in transforming your identity garden isn't adding new beliefs or forcibly removing old ones. It's developing awareness of what's already growing there. What beliefs about yourself have you been unconsciously cultivating? What limitations have you accepted as permanent features of your mental landscape? This process of belief archaeology requires looking beneath surface-level thoughts to uncover the deeper assumptions that have shaped your garden's layout. These are beliefs so fundamental, you might not even recognize them as beliefs. They simply feel like reality itself. Your identity garden isn't a fixed landscape. It's a living, breathing ecosystem that responds to your attention and awareness. The very act of recognizing these patterns begins to shift their hold on your mental territory. When you see how you've been unconsciously cultivating certain beliefs, you gain the power to choose which ones deserve your continued attention and which might be ready for uprooting. This isn't about dramatic overnight transformation or forcefully replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. It's about becoming a conscious gardener of your own mind, understanding that every thought you repeatedly think, every belief you continuously reinforce, is like water and nutrients feeding the plants in your mental landscape. The patterns currently growing in your identity garden have developed over years of unconscious cultivation. They've become so familiar that questioning them might feel like questioning reality itself. But as you'll discover, these patterns are more flexible than they appear. They're habits of thought rather than fixed aspects of who you are. These cultivated beliefs form the invisible scripts that guide your daily choices and actions. They influence everything from the opportunities you notice to the challenges you believe you can overcome. Like a director behind the scenes, these deep-rooted patterns orchestrate your responses to life situations, filtering what you perceive as possible or impossible before you even consciously consider your options. They whisper constant commentary about your capabilities, subtly steering you towards certain paths while making others seem completely inaccessible. The most powerful aspect of these scripts isn't their content, it's their ability to operate so seamlessly that you mistake their guidance for immutable truth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these scripts operate beneath the surface of your awareness, directing your life's course in ways you might never have suspected. Chapter 2: The Invisible Scripts of Your Life. Have you ever found yourself making the same self-defeating choice again and again, each time promising yourself never again, only to repeat the pattern as if some invisible force were guiding your hand? This experience is universal, that moment when you watch yourself taking actions that directly contradict your conscious intentions, as if following stage directions written in invisible ink. These moments reveal a profound truth about human behavior. Our actions aren't solely governed by conscious choice, but by deeply embedded narratives operating beneath the surface of awareness. Think of these as invisible scripts, subtle yet powerful programming that shapes your decisions without your conscious permission. These scripts don't announce themselves. They whisper through the choices that feel inexplicably right, despite leading to unwanted outcomes. They reveal themselves in the opportunities you automatically dismiss, the relationships you unconsciously sabotage, and the potential you refuse to acknowledge. The power of these scripts lies in their invisibility. They don't present themselves as debatable propositions, but as unquestionable truths about reality itself. When you think, I'm not the kind of person who, or someone like me couldn't possibly, you're not expressing a fact. You're reciting lines from a script you've internalized so completely that it feels like your authentic voice. Your scripts grew from countless sources: early experiences, cultural messages, significant emotional events, observed patterns in your family system. Over time, these accumulated narratives merged into what feels like natural law, as unquestionable as gravity. This creates what we might call narrative gravity, a force that pulls you back into familiar patterns, even as your conscious mind struggles to break free. There exists a critical distinction between your lived scripts, the actual narratives directing your behavior, and your aspirational scripts, the stories you tell yourself about who you want to be. This gap explains why traditional self-help approaches often fall short. You can't override deeply embedded programming through surface-level positive thinking or temporary motivation. You might resist this idea, arguing that you make conscious choices. But consider how many of your daily decisions stem from genuine conscious deliberation versus automatic responses based on what feels natural or right. These feelings of rightness don't emerge from careful analysis, but from alignment with your invisible scripts. These scripts create a form of perceptual filtering, determining what possibilities you can even perceive. Opportunities that contradict your scripts become literally invisible to you, filtered out before reaching conscious awareness. This explains why two people facing identical circumstances can see radically different options available to them. The path to freedom begins with recognition. Your scripts aren't permanent programming. They're inherited stories that can be revised once brought into awareness. This doesn't require years of therapy or complex techniques. It starts with a simple practice: script interruption. Script interruption means creating a momentary pause between stimulus and response, a space where you can question whether your immediate impulse stems from authentic desire or inherited narrative. This isn't about fighting your scripts, but about seeing them clearly enough to make conscious choices. When you feel that pull toward a familiar pattern, pause. Ask yourself, is this my authentic choice, or am I following a script? What story am I enacting at this moment? This simple questioning begins to loosen the grip of automatic programming. Your scripts have served a purpose. They've helped you navigate life with minimal conscious effort. But many scripts that once protected you now limit your growth. They're like childhood safety rules that no longer serve the adult you've become. This recognition opens the door to a profound shift in how you engage with your own behavior. Rather than battling against ingrained patterns or forcing yourself to be better, you can begin to see how your actions flow from stories that can be questioned and revised. These invisible scripts create the perceptual lenses through which you view all experience, shaping not just what you do, but what you believe is possible. Understanding these scripts lays the groundwork for expanding your perception beyond their limiting boundaries. Like a fish unaware of the water it swims in, you've been immersed in these unconscious narratives for so long that they feel like absolute truth rather than interpretations. They filter your reality before you even experience it, automatically categorizing opportunities as impossible or situations as threatening without conscious evaluation. But as you begin to identify these hidden influences, you gain the power to question their authority and glimpse the vast possibilities that exist beyond their artificial constraints. Chapter 3: The Lens That Creates Your Reality. What if the limitations you experience aren't in your circumstances, but in the lens through which you view them? Consider this fundamental truth. Two individuals facing identical situations can perceive entirely different realities. One sees opportunity where another sees threat. One discovers possibilities where another finds dead ends. One experiences growth where another feels only pain. The distinction lies not in their circumstances, but in their perceptual filters. These perceptual lenses, the invisible filters through which you interpret all experience, shape every aspect of your reality. They determine not just what you see, but what you believe is possible, what opportunities you recognize, and what actions you consider available to you. These lenses form through the accumulation of past experiences, cultural conditioning, and personal beliefs, becoming so integrated into your awareness that you mistake your interpretation of reality for reality itself. Your brain doesn't actually perceive reality directly. Instead, it constructs a model based on sensory input filtered through your expectations and beliefs. This neurological fact has profound implications for personal transformation. The world you experience isn't an objective reality, but a perception shaped by the lenses you've developed throughout your life. These lenses operate beneath conscious awareness, yet dramatically influence what you see as possible or impossible, threatening or promising. They act as invisible gatekeepers, pre-filtering opportunities before they even reach your conscious awareness. When you can't see a way forward, it's often not because no path exists, but because your perceptual filters have eliminated possibilities before they reach your conscious mind. The true power of these lenses lies in their invisibility. You don't see them, you see through them. They color your entire experience so consistently that their influence becomes transparent to you. This is why attempting to change your circumstances while maintaining the same perceptual filters often leads to frustration. You're trying to solve a perception problem with action solutions. Understanding the role of perceptual lenses reveals why two people can receive the same advice, read the same book, or encounter the same opportunity, yet experience entirely different outcomes. The distinction isn't in the information or opportunity itself, but in how their perceptual filters process and interpret that information. Your lenses aren't fixed or permanent. They can be cleared, adjusted, or even replaced with more expansive ways of seeing. This process begins with lens awareness, recognizing when you're viewing situations through filters that constrain your possibilities rather than expand them. The shift from lens-limited perception to lens-aware perception marks the beginning of true transformative change. This awareness creates choice where before there was only automatic response. When you recognize that you're looking through a limiting lens, you gain the ability to question that perspective rather than accepting it as reality. This is the crucial difference between lens-limited perception, where you unconsciously view situations through distorted filters, and lens-aware perception, where you recognize how your interpretation shapes your experience. The process of identifying your lenses requires a willingness to question your most basic assumptions about reality. What seems obviously true to you may simply be the product of a particular perceptual filter. What appears as an immutable fact of life might actually be an interpretation you've never thought to question. Your lenses manifest in the immediate judgments you make about situations, the automatic responses you have to challenges, and the unconscious limits you place on your possibilities. They reveal themselves in the opportunities you immediately dismiss as impossible, the goals you label as unrealistic, and the changes you categorize as not for someone like me. This recognition of your perceptual lenses represents the first step in the alchemy of perspective transformation. Rather than struggling to change what you see, you can begin to examine how you're seeing. This shift in focus, from the content of your perception to the process of perceiving, opens new possibilities for transformation. As you begin to recognize these perceptual filters, you may notice an instinctive resistance to questioning them. This resistance stems from your mind's natural tendency to seek psychological comfort in the familiar, even when those familiar perspectives no longer serve your growth. This very resistance points toward the next crucial understanding in your transformative journey: how our need for comfort often keeps us clinging to limiting lenses even when they no longer serve us. Chapter 4. The Comfort Paradox. What if the very boundaries you've created to feel safe have become the walls of your prison? Imagine a space that once felt like a sanctuary, a room perfectly sized for your needs, offering protection from the uncertainties and challenges of the outside world. Yet with each passing year, those walls inch closer, the ceiling drops incrementally lower, until the very space that once provided comfort now restricts your every movement. This paradox of comfort plays out in countless lives. The protective boundaries we establish, the familiar routines, the safe choices, the predictable relationships, gradually transform from sources of security into barriers to growth. Your comfort zone, like that slowly shrinking room, becomes both refuge and restraint. The human mind instinctively seeks psychological comfort, driven by ancient survival mechanisms that equate familiarity with safety. This natural tendency serves an important purpose in protecting us from genuine threats. However, in our modern world, this same mechanism often misdirects us, treating growth opportunities as dangers to be avoided. This comfort paradox manifests in subtle yet profound ways. You might dream of starting a business but remain in an unfulfilling job because it offers predictable security. You might long for deeper connections but maintain surface-level relationships to avoid vulnerability. You might desire greater fitness, but stick to routine exercises that no longer challenge you. In each case, the desire for immediate comfort overrides the potential for meaningful growth. Your comfort zone functions as an invisible boundary defining what you're willing to experience. Like muscle tissue that atrophies without regular stress, these boundaries naturally contract without consistent expansion. What feels comfortable today becomes more constrained tomorrow, unless actively challenged. The distinction between comfort-seeking and growth-seeking behaviors reveals a crucial truth about personal development. Comfort-seeking prioritizes immediate emotional security, leading to choices that maintain current limitations. Growth-seeking, while initially less comfortable, expands your capacity for experience and achievement. This isn't about dismissing your legitimate need for safety and security. Your comfort-seeking instinct serves an important purpose. The key lies in recognizing when this protective mechanism has outlived its usefulness, when it's preventing growth rather than preserving well-being, Consider how comfort-constrained living manifests in decision-making. Each choice becomes filtered through the primary question: will this maintain my current comfort level? Rather than, will this lead to growth and fulfillment? This filtering occurs so automatically that we often don't realize how many opportunities we reject before conscious consideration. Your comfort zone isn't a fixed boundary, but a flexible perimeter that responds to either expansion or contraction. Each time you step slightly beyond its edge, it expands to encompass new territory. Each time you retreat from its boundaries, it contracts to exclude previously accessible experiences. The path to growth doesn't require dramatic leaps into discomfort. Instead, it involves regular, intentional steps just beyond your current comfort edge. This comfort edge expansion gradually increases your capacity for growth while maintaining psychological stability. The most profound transformation occurs when you shift your relationship with comfort itself. Rather than seeing comfort as a goal to be achieved, recognize it as a signal indicating potential for growth. When you feel that edge of discomfort, it's not warning you of danger but marking the boundary where expansion becomes possible. This perspective shift transforms how you view challenging situations. The anxiety before public speaking, the uncertainty of learning a new skill, the vulnerability of forming deeper relationships. These moments of discomfort become recognized not as threats to avoid, but as opportunities for expansion. Your relationship with comfort ultimately reflects your relationship with growth itself. Each moment presents a choice: contract into the familiar or expand into new possibilities. The walls of your comfort zone are not solid barriers, but permeable boundaries awaiting your decision to move beyond them. The journey of transformation is never complete. It spirals onward into ever-expanding territory. Each time you stretch beyond familiar boundaries, you discover new horizons beckoning you forward. What once seemed like your absolute limit becomes a launching point for the next phase of growth. This ongoing evolution isn't about constantly pushing yourself to exhaustion or rejecting all comfort. Rather, it's about developing an intimate understanding of the dynamic between rest and expansion. Sometimes you'll need to pause and integrate your growth. Other times you'll feel that familiar pull toward greater possibility. The key is remaining honest with yourself about which choice serves your highest good in each moment. Are you stepping back to genuinely recharge or avoiding growth out of fear? Are you pushing forward from inspiration or forcing movement from anxiety? Your awareness of these subtle distinctions grows sharper with experience. Trust that this journey unfolds at exactly the right pace for you. The path of growth isn't a sprint, but a lifelong exploration of your expanding potential. Each step beyond comfort's edge reveals new capabilities you didn't know you possessed. Chapter 5: The Mirror of Others. Every significant relationship in your life serves as a unique mirror, reflecting different aspects of who you are. In one interaction, you might see yourself as confident and capable, while another brings forth insecurity and self-doubt. With certain people, your creativity flows effortlessly, while others seem to trigger your most rigid patterns. These varying reflections raise a profound question: which version represents the real you? The truth lies deeper than simple personality shifts across different contexts. Your relationships function as sophisticated mirrors, reflecting not just your conscious self-image, but also qualities you've disowned or haven't yet recognized within yourself. When you react strongly to someone's behavior, whether with admiration, irritation, or judgment, you're often encountering aspects of yourself seeking acknowledgement. This phenomenon of relational mirroring extends far beyond surface-level interactions. Each person in your life unknowingly plays a role in your personal narrative, reflecting both your authentic qualities and your projections. That colleague whose success triggers unexpected jealousy might be mirroring your own unlived potential. The friend whose neediness irritates you could be reflecting your own disowned vulnerability. These mirrors operate with remarkable precision, though their messages often go unrecognized. When you find yourself constantly drawn to certain personalities or repeatedly clashing with particular traits in others, you're encountering your own psychological material seeking integration. Your strongest emotional reactions serve as signposts, pointing toward aspects of yourself that require attention and acceptance. The challenge lies in recognizing these reflections for what they are. It's far easier to believe your reactions stem purely from others' qualities rather than acknowledging them as projections of your own psyche. This natural tendency to externalize creates a blind spot, causing you to miss valuable opportunities for self-discovery and growth. Consider how your perceptions of others shift as you change. As you develop greater self-acceptance, those same qualities that once triggered judgment in others often become less charged. This shift occurs not because others have changed, but because you're no longer using them as repositories for your disowned aspects. Your relationships also mirror your expectations and beliefs about what's possible in connection with others. If you believe deep trust is rare, your interactions will reflect and reinforce this belief. If you expect others to eventually disappoint you, your relational patterns will align with this expectation. These self-fulfilling prophecies operate beneath conscious awareness, creating consistent yet invisible constraints on your relationship experiences. The power of relational mirroring lies in its potential for transformation. When you recognize that your strongest reactions to others contain valuable information about yourself, every interaction becomes an opportunity for greater self-awareness. Those moments of trigger or judgment transform from sources of distress into doorways for growth. This recognition doesn't require you to accept blame for relational difficulties or dismiss legitimate concerns about others' behavior. Instead, it invites you to explore what your reactions reveal about your own internal landscape. When someone's behavior provokes an intense response, pause to consider what this mirror might be showing you about yourself. The practice of presence-based relating offers an alternative to projection-based interactions. Instead of relating primarily to your mental images and assumptions about others, you can choose to engage with the actual person before you. This shift requires willingness to question your immediate reactions and stay curious about what they might reveal. Your emotional triggers in relationships become particularly powerful teachers when approached with this understanding. Rather than seeing them as problems to overcome, you can view them as precise indicators of areas ready for integration and growth. Each trigger points to an aspect of yourself seeking acknowledgement and acceptance. This perspective transforms relationships from sources of validation or frustration into opportunities for profound self-discovery. The very qualities that most challenge you in others become guides to your own development. Your relationship landscape becomes a dynamic mirror hall, each interaction offering new angles of reflection and insight into your full potential. Through this lens, relationships serve not just as connections with others, but as pathways to knowing yourself more completely. The diverse reflections you encounter across different relationships aren't contradictions to resolve, but facets of your wholeness seeking expression. Every interaction reveals another dimension of your potential, another shade of your authentic self, waiting to emerge. Even the most challenging relationships illuminate aspects of your character you might never discover in isolation. your capacity for patience, your hidden strengths, your deepest values. These encounters shape not just who you become in relation to others, but who you recognize yourself to be at your core. Chapter 6. The Possibility Blindness. You've likely experienced those moments when something suddenly becomes visible that was there all along, like noticing a building you've passed hundreds of times without truly seeing it. This phenomenon goes far beyond mere physical observation. It reveals a fundamental truth about human perception. What we see is inextricably linked to what we believe is possible. Consider how your brain processes the vast amount of information bombarding your senses every moment. Your neural circuitry, evolved for survival and efficiency, automatically filters out anything deemed irrelevant to your current goals or beliefs. This filtering mechanism, while essential for daily functioning, creates what we might call possibility blindness, the inability to perceive opportunities that exist outside our established patterns of thought. This blindness operates at a level far deeper than conscious awareness. Your brain, operating as an efficiency machine, creates shortcuts based on past experiences and beliefs. These mental pathways become so well worn that they actually alter your perception, making it harder to recognize possibilities that don't align with your existing worldview. Your attention follows these neural grooves like water flowing down established channels. When you believe something is impossible or beyond your capabilities, your brain literally filters out evidence that might contradict this belief. It's not that opportunities don't exist. It's that your perceptual filters are screening them from your awareness before they ever reach your conscious mind. This filtering process serves an important purpose. Without it, you'd be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information your senses receive every second. Your brain creates these filters as a survival mechanism, helping you focus on what it deems relevant based on your past experiences and current beliefs. However, these same filters can become invisible prison walls, constraining your awareness of what's possible. The implications of this understanding are profound. The limitations you experience may have less to do with external reality and more to do with your perceptual filters. Your brain doesn't show you the world as it is, but rather the world as it relates to your existing beliefs, expectations, and goals. This isn't about trying harder to see opportunities, straining to perceive what your filters are screening out, actually reinforces those very filters. Instead, it's about understanding how your perceptual system operates and learning to expand your awareness beyond its habitual patterns. Think of your perception as a searchlight sweeping across the landscape of possibility. The beam's width and direction are determined by your beliefs about what's possible. When you believe certain opportunities are impossible or unavailable to you, your perceptual searchlight simply doesn't illuminate those areas of possibility. The key to expanding your awareness lies not in forcing yourself to see what's currently invisible, but in adjusting the filters through which you look. This requires a fundamental shift in how you approach perception itself. Rather than accepting your current view as an accurate representation of reality, begin to recognize it as one possible interpretation, filtered through your existing beliefs and expectations. Your perceptual filters are not fixed. They're malleable, capable of expanding to include possibilities currently outside your awareness. This expansion begins with the simple recognition that your current perception is filtered, that what you see is not all there is to see. This understanding transforms how you approach opportunities and possibilities in your life. Instead of assuming you're seeing everything that's available to you, adopt an attitude of curious exploration. Begin to question the boundaries of your current perception. What possibilities might exist just beyond the edge of your awareness? What opportunities might be present but currently filtered from your view? This process of expanding awareness doesn't require learning new skills or acquiring more information. Instead, it involves recognizing and gradually releasing the perceptual filters that limit your view of what's possible. As these filters relax, new possibilities naturally emerge into awareness. Possibilities that were always present but previously invisible to your perception. Consider how this shift in understanding might transform your approach to challenges and goals. Rather than focusing solely on what you can currently see as possible, acknowledge that your perception might be filtering out viable pathways and opportunities. This acknowledgement alone begins to expand your field of possible action. The practice of expanding awareness starts with recognizing moments when your automatic filters are operating. Notice when you immediately dismiss possibilities or assume certain paths are closed to you. In these moments, rather than accepting these limitations as reality, consider them as indicators of your current perceptual filters at work. Chapter 7. From Burden to Bridge. What we perceive as burdens often contain hidden bridges to our transformation. This truth becomes evident when you examine how nearly every significant breakthrough in human history emerged from what initially appeared as an insurmountable obstacle. The weight you're carrying right now, that challenge that seems to be holding you back, might actually be the precise tool you need for your next evolution. Consider how your current interpretation of challenging circumstances shapes your experience of them. When you view a situation as purely problematic, you naturally resist it. This resistance creates a peculiar paradox. The more energy you invest in fighting against unwanted circumstances, the more you actually reinforce their power over you. Your opposition becomes a form of attachment, binding you more tightly to the very thing you're trying to escape. Perspective alchemy offers a radical shift in how you relate to life's challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as obstacles to be eliminated, you begin to recognize them as raw materials for transformation. This isn't about positive thinking or denying the reality of challenges. Rather, it's about developing the capacity to extract value from every experience, especially the difficult ones. Your brain naturally categorizes experiences as either beneficial or harmful, desirable or undesirable. While this binary classification served our ancestors well for survival, it can limit your ability to recognize opportunities disguised as obstacles. True perspective alchemy begins when you suspend this automatic categorization long enough to examine what else might be true about your circumstances. The process of alchemical transformation requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with challenges. Rather than immediately reacting with resistance, you learn to pause and ask different questions. What capabilities might this situation be developing in me? What understanding could this difficulty be cultivating? What doors might this apparent obstacle be opening? This shift from resistance to receptivity doesn't mean passive acceptance of circumstances you'd prefer to change. Instead, it represents a more sophisticated approach to transformation. By first accepting the reality of your situation, you free up the energy previously spent on resistance. This liberated energy becomes available for actual transformation. Consider how resistance itself creates a form of blindness. When you're in a state of opposition to your circumstances, you literally cannot see certain aspects of your situation. Your focus narrows to the problem, causing you to miss potential opportunities or resources that exist alongside the challenge. The practice of perspective alchemy involves developing your capacity to hold multiple truths simultaneously. A situation can be genuinely difficult, while also containing seeds of opportunity. A challenge can feel overwhelming while simultaneously strengthening capabilities you'll need for future growth. What appears as an obstacle can simultaneously function as a bridge, but only if you're willing to look beyond your initial interpretation. This alchemical perspective doesn't deny the reality of pain or difficulty. Instead, it expands your relationship with challenging experiences to include their transformative potential. Just as physical alchemy involves transforming base metals into gold, perspective alchemy involves transforming the base materials of difficulty into the gold of wisdom, capability, and understanding. The key lies in shifting from problem orientation to opportunity orientation. Rather than asking, "How can I eliminate this obstacle?" you begin asking, "What's trying to emerge through this experience?" This subtle shift in questioning opens up new possibilities that remain invisible when you're solely focused on resistance or elimination. Real transformation rarely comes through avoiding difficulties or seeking easier paths. It emerges through developing new ways of relating to challenges, seeing them not as mere obstacles, but as essential components of your growth. Every master alchemist knows that transformation requires both base materials and catalyzing agents. Your challenges provide both, the raw material for change and the catalyst that makes transformation possible. The burdens you carry contain hidden bridges. The obstacles in your path hold concealed opportunities. The question isn't whether this is true. It's whether you're willing to suspend your current interpretation long enough to discover what else might be possible. Every challenge presents a choice. Will you remain in resistance, or will you engage in the alchemical process of transformation? Your struggles aren't random acts of cosmic cruelty. They're precisely calibrated invitations to evolve beyond your current limitations. That weight pressing down on your shoulders might feel like it's crushing you, but it's actually strengthening muscles you never knew you had. Those roadblocks forcing you to stop might seem like dead ends, but they're redirecting you toward paths you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. This isn't about positive thinking or denying the reality of your difficulties. It's about expanding your perception to recognize that every burden carries within it the seeds of new capabilities, waiting to be activated by your willingness to see beyond surface appearances. When you truly grasp this truth, you'll stop asking what's wrong with your situation and start exploring what's trying to emerge through it. Chapter 8: The Stories That Bind and Blind Us. Your mind operates like a vast library filled with countless narratives about who you are, what you're capable of, and how the world works. Some of these stories have been read so frequently their chapters are worn thin from constant handling, while others remain unopened, their potential insights untapped. These well-worn stories create such familiar pathways in your thinking that they've become invisible, no longer appearing as interpretations but as fundamental truths about reality. What if your sense of who you are is not a fixed truth, but simply the story you've told yourself most consistently? This question strikes at the heart of identity itself, challenging the assumption that who you are is somehow permanently etched into the fabric of your being. Your identity, rather than being an immutable core, exists as a collection of narratives you've woven together to create meaning and continuity in your life. These stories serve an essential purpose. They help you make sense of your experiences and navigate the complexity of existence. Yet when you mistake these interpretations for unchangeable reality, they become invisible constraints, silently dictating what you believe is possible or impossible for you. Consider how your brain processes experience. An event occurs, and almost instantaneously, you create meaning around it. This meaning-making process happens so quickly and automatically that you rarely notice the gap between what actually happened and the story you tell about what happened. This distinction between events and interpretation opens up remarkable possibilities for transformation. Your narrative identity, the collection of stories that define your sense of self, operates like a sophisticated filtering system, highlighting experiences that confirm your existing stories, while overlooking or reinterpreting those that contradict them. This process of narrative entrenchment explains why simply trying to think positively often fails to create lasting change. Your existing stories actively work to maintain their coherence, even when those stories limit your potential. The power of these narratives extends far beyond mere self-reflection. They actively shape your perception, decision-making, and behavior. When you tell yourself, "I'm not good at public speaking," this isn't merely a description of past experiences, but an active force that influences how you approach future speaking opportunities, how you interpret audience reactions, and even how your body responds in presentation situations. This recognition of narrative's power isn't about denying reality or pretending that challenges don't exist. Instead, it invites you to examine the difference between actual limitations and interpretive ones. While you cannot change certain facts of your past experiences, you maintain complete freedom to reinterpret what those experiences mean about you and your capabilities. Most people operate in a state of story imprisonment, unconsciously bound by narratives they've never questioned. The alternative is story authorship, consciously examining your narratives and choosing interpretations that serve your growth while remaining grounded in reality. This shift from passive recipient to active author of your story represents one of the most powerful transformations available to you. Your brain naturally resists this kind of narrative examination. It's designed to maintain consistency rather than challenge existing interpretations. This resistance often manifests as a voice insisting that your limiting stories aren't stories at all, but simply the way things are. Recognizing this resistance as part of your brain's natural functioning, rather than evidence of immutable truth, creates space for new possibilities. The process of revising your narratives requires a delicate balance between honoring your experiences and recognizing their interpretive nature. Rather than denying or suppressing limiting stories, you can acknowledge them while simultaneously questioning whether they represent the only possible interpretation of events. Every significant moment in your life exists as both concrete reality and subjective meaning. The facts of what occurred remain unchanged, but the story you've wrapped around those facts shapes how they influence your present and future. By maintaining this dual awareness, you create space to honor the impact of your experiences while exploring alternative meanings that might serve you better. Your current interpretations aren't wrong. They're simply one way of making sense of what happened, and other equally valid perspectives await your discovery. Chapter 9: The Illusion of Permanence. Throughout your life, you've accumulated a collection of beliefs about who you are, labels, limitations, and characteristics that seem as fixed as carved stone. These self-definitions feel permanent and unchangeable, like a tree that assumes its current shape represents all it could ever be, unaware that it continues growing and changing with each passing season. What if the person you believe yourself to be is merely a temporary configuration, a snapshot of an identity in constant flux rather than a fixed and final form? This fundamentally challenges your brain's preference for stability and certainty, suggesting that your current limitations exist more in perception than in reality. The illusion of permanence operates as one of the mind's most powerful and persistent filters. Your brain, designed to create order from chaos, naturally seeks patterns and stability. It constructs a sense of continuous, unchanging identity, a psychological anchor that helps you navigate life, but can also trap you in outdated self-definitions. This preference for stability serves an important evolutionary purpose. It helps you maintain a coherent sense of self across time and circumstances. However, this same mechanism can convince you that temporary states are permanent traits, that current limitations define your ultimate potential, that who you are today is who you must always be. Your brain actively maintains this illusion of permanence by filtering out evidence that contradicts your established self-image. When you think, "I'm not good at public speaking," or "I'll never be successful," these aren't objective truths, but self-reinforcing narratives that your mind constantly works to validate and preserve. Yet beneath this perceived permanence lies an extraordinary capacity for transformation. Your brain exhibits remarkable neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural pathways and reorganize existing ones throughout life. This biological reality directly contradicts the psychological illusion of a fixed identity. Identity plasticity, your innate capacity to evolve and reshape yourself, remains active throughout your entire life. Rather than being carved in stone, your identity more closely resembles a river, maintaining a recognizable form while being in constant flux, never consisting of the same water twice. This understanding presents a profound paradox. The very stability you seek through maintaining a fixed identity actually limits your access to your full potential. By clinging to familiar self-definitions, you inadvertently resist the natural flow of growth and transformation that characterizes all living systems. Transformation doesn't require becoming someone entirely different. It involves allowing yourself to evolve beyond self-imposed constraints. This distinction proves crucial. You're not abandoning who you are, but rather releasing artificial limitations on who you can become. Your resistance to questioning these seemingly permanent aspects of identity is natural and understandable. The mind instinctively protects its established sense of self, treating any challenge to these fixed definitions as a potential threat. Yet this very resistance signals the presence of artificial constraints that may no longer serve your growth. The fluid nature of identity becomes apparent when you examine how you've already changed throughout your life. The person you were 10 years ago thought, felt, and behaved differently from who you are today. This evolution happened not through radical reinvention, but through subtle shifts in perception and response patterns. Consider how often you mistake temporary states for permanent traits. A period of anxiety becomes, "I'm an anxious person." A series of setbacks becomes, "I'm a failure." These translations from experience to identity create artificial boundaries around your potential. Your identity exists not as a fixed point, but as a flowing process, more verb than noun. Each moment offers an opportunity to step beyond the constraints of your perceived permanence into the reality of your continuous evolution. This shift in understanding, from seeing yourself as a finished product to recognizing yourself as an unfolding process, fundamentally alters what you believe possible. When you grasp this truth, the walls of your self-imposed limitations begin to dissolve. You realize that every characteristic you've labeled as unchangeable represents merely a snapshot of a moving stream, not its eternal nature. Your thoughts, behaviors, and capabilities flow like a river, carving new channels through the landscape of your potential. The question transforms from "Who am I?" to "Who am I becoming at this moment?" This subtle yet profound shift opens doors you never knew existed. revealing pathways to growth that your fixed identity kept hidden from view. Chapter 10. The Power of Presence. Your mind constantly pulls you away from the present moment, creating elaborate fantasies of future achievement or rehashing past events. This temporal displacement, living mentally in imagined futures or remembered pasts, has become so habitual that you barely notice its profound impact on your life experience. Yet this persistent orientation away from the present moment creates a peculiar form of blindness to the opportunities, resources, and fulfillment available right now. Consider how much of your current energy focuses on reaching some future state, a goal, an achievement, a level of success that you believe will finally bring satisfaction. This future fixation creates a perpetual state of not yet, a sense that real life begins after you reach the next milestone. Meanwhile, the actual richness of your current experience goes unnoticed and unexplored. You might recognize this pattern in how you approach personal growth itself. Perhaps you're constantly preparing, planning, or waiting for the right moment to make meaningful changes. You tell yourself that once you have more time, more resources, more knowledge, or more stability, then you'll be ready to transform. But this orientation toward future readiness actually disconnects you from your present capacity for change. Temporal displacement operates through two primary mechanisms: future projection and past rumination. Future projection pulls your attention toward imagined scenarios, both desired and feared, creating anxiety about what might happen and endless preparation for hypothetical circumstances. Past rumination keeps you mentally rehearsing previous experiences, either trying to extract lessons or wishing things had gone differently. Both mechanisms share a common effect. They divert your awareness from the only moment where transformation is actually possible. This persistent disconnection from present experience creates what we might call presence poverty, a state of being mentally wealthy in plans, preparations, and possibilities, while remaining experientially impoverished in the moment. You can observe this in how often your mind wanders from current experience to thoughts about what's next or what came before. Your cultural conditioning reinforces this temporal displacement. From early education through professional life, you're trained to value destinations over journeys, outcomes over processes, future achievements over present engagement. This conditioning creates a peculiar form of suffering, always reaching for what's next while missing what's here. The mind resists presence because it believes constant planning and reviewing serve your survival and success. And indeed, the ability to learn from the past and plan for the future represents a remarkable evolutionary achievement. But when these capacities dominate your attention, they create a persistent state of disconnection from your actual life as it unfolds. This disconnection has practical consequences beyond just missing out on present experience. When your attention constantly projects forward or backward, you lose access to crucial information about your current circumstances, resources, and opportunities. You might miss signs of needed course corrections or fail to notice support and possibilities available right now. Moreover, temporal displacement creates a subtle but persistent form of resistance to what is. When your attention constantly seeks some future state or wishes for past alternatives, you reject your present reality. This rejection doesn't change what is, but it does blind you to how you might work with current circumstances creatively. The path to greater presence doesn't require abandoning planning or reflection. Rather, it involves recognizing when future projection or past rumination has captured your attention and gently returning to present experience. This return to presence isn't about achieving some special state. It's about allowing yourself to fully inhabit your life as it actually unfolds. Each time you notice your mind pulling away from present experience into thoughts about past or future, you have an opportunity to practice presence. This noticing itself represents a moment of awakening from temporal displacement. The more you develop this capacity to notice and return, the more you'll discover that the fulfillment you seek in future achievements is actually available in your present engagement with life. Just as a muscle grows stronger through repeated use, your ability to anchor yourself in the present moment expands with each conscious return. You might be surprised to find that what initially feels like an interruption to your mental wandering gradually transforms into an almost effortless recognition of when you've drifted away. This heightened awareness reveals how much of your life energy has been spent chasing shadows of what could be, or mourning what might have been, while the rich textures of your immediate experience went unnoticed. Chapter 11. The Wisdom of Uncertainty. The demand for certainty runs deep in the human psyche, woven into the very fabric of our survival instincts. You stand at the edge of potential action, caught in that familiar paralysis of needing to know every step ahead before taking the first one. This paralysis masquerades as prudence, as responsible planning, as necessary preparation. But in reality, it serves as the primary barrier between you and the life you seek to create. What if your need for certainty before acting is actually your greatest limitation? This question strikes at the heart of a fundamental misunderstanding about how growth and transformation actually occur. The illusion that we must fully understand the path ahead before beginning our journey prevents us from accessing the very experiences that would provide that understanding. The principle of certainty addiction operates beneath conscious awareness, driving decisions and non-decisions alike. This compulsive need for predictability emerges from our brain's primary directive: survival. In our evolutionary past, uncertainty often signaled danger, making caution and hesitation valuable survival traits. But in today's world of complex opportunities and continuous change, this same protective mechanism becomes a constraint, keeping us trapped in familiar but limiting patterns. Your brain constantly seeks to create certainty even where none exists, constructing elaborate predictions and explanations to maintain an illusion of control. This mechanism operates so automatically that you likely don't notice how it filters your perception of possibilities, automatically dismissing opportunities that involve stepping into the unknown. The cultural reinforcement of certainty-seeking compounds this natural tendency. Educational systems reward definitive answers over exploratory questions. Professional environments often prioritize predictable outcomes over innovative possibilities. Social circles tend to support maintaining comfortable certainty over embracing growth-producing uncertainty. This collective valorization of certainty creates a double bind. You feel compelled to know outcomes before acting, yet meaningful growth inherently involves stepping into the unknown. The distinction between uncertainty avoidance and uncertainty capacity becomes crucial here. Uncertainty avoidance manifests as endless preparation, excessive research, constant seeking of validation, and perpetual postponement of action. It creates an illusion of progress while actually maintaining stasis. Uncertainty capacity, by contrast, involves developing comfort with not knowing while taking action anyway. Your resistance to this idea likely feels visceral and immediate. After all, certainty feels like safety, like wisdom, like responsible behavior. But examine this resistance closely. What if this very discomfort with uncertainty indicates not danger, but rather the edge of your growth potential? What if your instinct to avoid uncertainty is actually highlighting exactly where you need to expand? The paradox becomes clear. Certainty-dependent action severely limits your access to life's possibilities. By waiting to know exactly how things will unfold, you miss opportunities that only become visible through engagement. Think of it this way. Clarity often emerges through movement, not before it. The path reveals itself to those already walking. Consider how certainty addiction manifests in your own life. Notice how often you defer action until you feel completely ready. Observe how your mind creates elaborate reasons why now isn't the right time, why you need more information, more preparation, more assurance. This awareness itself begins to loosen certainty's grip, moving from certainty-dependent action to uncertainty-inclusive action involves a fundamental shift in how you relate to the unknown. Rather than seeing uncertainty as a problem to solve before acting, you begin to recognize it as an inherent part of any meaningful journey. This shift doesn't eliminate the discomfort of uncertainty, but rather changes your relationship with that discomfort. The practice of uncertainty embracing begins with small steps into the unknown, while maintaining awareness of your automatic certainty-seeking responses. Pay attention to how your mind reacts to not knowing. Notice the stories it generates about needing more preparation, more information, more guarantees. Simply observing these patterns starts to reduce their power over your choices. This capacity to embrace uncertainty actually increases your ability to navigate life effectively. When you're not expending enormous energy trying to eliminate the unknown, you have more resources available for creative problem solving and responsive action. The flexibility that comes from accepting uncertainty allows you to adapt more quickly to changing circumstances rather than being caught in rigid expectations. The true nature of transformation emerges through this lens. Meaningful change inherently involves stepping into the unknown. By developing your capacity to act in the presence of uncertainty, you access possibilities that remain invisible to those trapped in certainty addiction. Chapter 12. The Freedom of Acceptance. From the depths of human experience emerges a profound truth that often feels counterintuitive. The more intensely we resist our present reality, the more firmly we become trapped within it. Like someone caught in quicksand, your instinctive response to unwanted circumstances is likely to struggle against them, to push back, to resist what is. Yet this very resistance often deepens your entanglement, consuming precious energy that could be directed toward actual transformation. What if acceptance, not resistance, is the true beginning of transformation? This question challenges everything you've likely been taught about creating change. Society celebrates the fighters, the resistors, those who refuse to accept limitations. Yet this narrative overlooks a crucial paradox. True power often emerges not from resistance, but from acceptance. The acceptance paradox reveals how fully acknowledging what is creates a stable foundation necessary for genuine change. When you resist reality, you initiate an internal war that divides your energy and attention. This resistance manifests as internal tension, emotional strain, and mental fatigue, all consuming the very resources you need for meaningful transformation. Consider how resistance energy operates in your life. Each time you internally fight against what is, you create additional layers of suffering beyond the original circumstance. This resistance doesn't change reality. It only changes how you experience it, usually by amplifying your distress and depleting your resilience. The distinction between acceptance and resignation proves crucial here. Resignation is passive surrender. a giving up that stems from hopelessness. Acceptance, by contrast, is active acknowledgement of reality without judgment, a clear seeing that actually empowers effective response. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of or desire your current circumstances. It simply means you stop denying their existence. This understanding reveals the acceptance-action paradox. You can fully accept what is while simultaneously taking action to create change. In fact, genuine acceptance often releases the energy previously consumed by resistance, making more resources available for meaningful transformation. Your resistance patterns likely feel deeply ingrained. After all, they've been reinforced by years of conditioning that equates acceptance with weakness. Yet what if this conditioning has led you astray? What if your very resistance to unwanted circumstances has been strengthening their hold over you? The acceptance-based approach begins with radical acknowledgement of current reality. This doesn't mean you like it or want it to continue, only that you stop expending energy pretending it isn't so. From this foundation of clear seeing, you can assess your situation without the distorting lens of resistance, and take action from a place of grounded awareness rather than reactive struggle. The myth that acceptance means passivity has likely prevented you from recognizing its transformative power. Yet acceptance actually creates the conditions necessary for effective action by freeing up the energy previously consumed by resistance. When you stop fighting reality, you can start changing it. This principle extends beyond personal circumstances to your relationship with emotions, thoughts, and the inherent uncertainties of life. Each time you practice accepting what is, even if only for a moment, you strengthen your capacity for clear seeing and effective response. The paradoxical truth emerges. The more fully you accept what is, the more equipped you become to transform it. This isn't about surrendering to circumstances, but about surrendering the resistance that keeps you trapped in ineffective patterns of response. The language we use both reflects and reinforces our relationship with reality, shaping our capacity for both acceptance and transformation. The words through which we frame our experience can either perpetuate resistance or cultivate acceptance. The language we use both reflects and reinforces our relationship with reality, shaping our capacity for both acceptance and transformation. The words through which we frame our experience can either perpetuate resistance or cultivate acceptance. When you describe a situation as unfair or shouldn't be happening, you unconsciously strengthen the barrier between yourself and what is. But when you choose a language that acknowledges reality while maintaining your power to respond, this is challenging, and I'm learning to work with it. You create space for both acceptance and positive change. Your words aren't just descriptors, they're architects of your experience, building bridges or walls between you and life's possibilities. Pay attention to the subtle ways your language habits might be reinforcing old patterns of resistance. Notice how different words evoke different emotional and physical responses within you. This awareness alone begins to transform your relationship with reality. Chapter 13. The Language That Shapes Your World. Words shape worlds. The language you use isn't merely describing your reality, it's actively creating it. When you label a challenging project as a nightmare, you instantly generate feelings of dread and resistance. Yet that same project, when called an adventure, sparks curiosity and engagement. This isn't just semantic wordplay, it's the fundamental architecture of your experienced reality. Your vocabulary acts as a lens through which you perceive and interact with life. Each word you choose carries not just literal meaning, but an entire constellation of associations, emotions, and implicit possibilities, or limitations. When you consistently describe yourself as trying to achieve something, you're unconsciously embedding the possibility of failure into your efforts. Similarly, when you label yourself as bad at certain activities, you're not making an objective observation but rather constructing a self-fulfilling prophecy. The influence of language goes far deeper than simple positive versus negative thinking. Your words literally shape what you're capable of perceiving. If your vocabulary for describing emotions is limited to good or bad, you'll miss the rich nuances of your emotional experience. If your language for describing challenges only includes words like problem, obstacle, and difficulty, you'll consistently overlook opportunities within those very situations. This linguistic construction of reality operates largely beneath conscious awareness. You've inherited patterns of speech from family, culture, and experience that now function as invisible filters on your perception. These patterns become so familiar that they seem like objective descriptions of reality rather than chosen interpretations. Your habitual vocabulary creates boundaries around what you believe is possible. When you say, I can't, it's impossible, or that's just how I am, you're not describing unchangeable facts. You're constructing limitations. These linguistic constraints become self-reinforcing as your brain filters experience to match your verbal expectations. Consider how different possibilities become available when you shift from I have to I choose to, from this is overwhelming to this is challenging, or from I failed to I learned. Each linguistic shift creates a different perceptual landscape with different available pathways for action. The power of this understanding lies in its accessibility. While many aspects of perception can be difficult to shift directly, you can immediately begin choosing different words. This isn't about artificially imposed positive language, but rather about selecting words that expand, rather than contract your sense of possibility. Pay attention to phrases that recur in your internal dialogue. Notice words that automatically arise when describing challenges or setbacks. These patterns aren't random. They're the building blocks of your perceptual prison or your palace of possibility. The goal isn't to eliminate all negative language, but to develop linguistic flexibility, the ability to consciously choose words that serve rather than sabotage your growth. When you catch yourself using constrictive language, pause and consider, what other words could describe this situation? What language would open up new possibilities rather than shut them down? Your brain processes your chosen words as instructions for perception and action. When you describe something as terrible, you're not just expressing an opinion, you're directing your nervous system to respond with stress and resistance. When you describe the same situation as challenging, you engage systems of problem solving and resilience. Language shapes thought, thought shapes perception, and perception shapes experience. By becoming conscious of your linguistic choices, you gain access to one of the most powerful tools for transformation, the ability to literally reshape your experienced reality through the deliberate selection of words that expand rather than contract your world. This isn't about denying reality or sugarcoating difficulties. It's about recognizing that multiple linguistic frameworks can accurately describe any situation, and some frameworks reveal possibilities while others conceal them. The choice of which framework to employ is yours, and that choice has profound consequences for what you can perceive and achieve. Notice how your reality shifts when you replace I'm overwhelmed with I'm fully engaged, I'm stuck with I'm in process, or this is hopeless with I haven't found the solution yet. Each linguistic shift creates a different experiential landscape with different emotional tones and available actions. Chapter 14. The Courage to Be Imperfect. You've been waiting for the perfect moment, haven't you? That elusive time when you'll finally feel ready enough, skilled enough, prepared enough to take meaningful action toward your dreams. Like someone standing at the edge of a pool, continuously checking the water temperature but never actually diving in, you've mastered the art of preparation while postponing the act of true engagement. What if your pursuit of perfection is actually a sophisticated form of self-sabotage? This question might feel uncomfortable, even offensive at first. After all, your high standards have served you well in many ways. They've driven you to develop skills, to learn deeply, to maintain quality in your work. But there's a crucial distinction between excellence and perfectionism that changes everything about how you approach life and growth. Perfectionism operates as an invisible prison, keeping you safely confined within the walls of preparation and planning, while preventing the very actions that would lead to real progress. It's a paradox that plays out in countless ways. The business idea you won't launch until every detail is flawless. The creative project you continually revise but never share. The relationship you won't pursue until you've become your best self. This perfectionism paradox creates a particularly insidious form of self-sabotage because it disguises itself as conscientiousness. It feels responsible, mature, professional to wait until everything is just right before taking action. But this apparent responsibility often masks a deeper fear of vulnerability, judgment, or failure. The perfectionist mindset transforms every opportunity for growth into a test that you must pass flawlessly or not attempt at all. Your brain, designed for survival, naturally gravitates toward perfectionism because it offers an illusion of control and safety. By setting impossibly high standards, you create a built-in excuse for not taking risks that might lead to failure or judgment. It's a clever psychological sleight of hand. You don't have to face the possibility of failure if you never actually begin. This pattern creates what I call action paralysis, a state where the very pursuit of perfection prevents any meaningful progress. The more you focus on achieving flawless results, the less likely you are to engage in the messy, imperfect process of actual growth and achievement. It's like trying to learn how to swim by reading every book about proper technique while never getting wet. The cultural emphasis on outcomes over process dramatically reinforces this tendency. From early education through professional life, we're taught to value perfect results over courageous attempts, flawless performances over genuine exploration. This creates a devastating equation in your mind. Anything less than perfect equals failure. But what if imperfection isn't just an unfortunate reality to be minimized, but actually an essential component of any meaningful growth? What if those very imperfections, mistakes, and failures are not obstacles to success, but rather the necessary steps on the path to mastery? This shift in perspective transforms perfectionism from a virtue to a vulnerability. Excellence, unlike perfectionism, embraces the necessity of imperfect action. It understands that mastery comes through iteration, not perfection. Excellence says, begin now, improve as you go. Perfectionism says, wait until you can't possibly fail. The most insidious aspect of perfectionism is how it feels like protection while actually serving as limitation. By waiting to be perfect before taking action, you're not protecting your potential. You're preventing its expression. Every moment spent in preparation rather than action is a moment where growth and discovery remain theoretical rather than actual. The path forward lies not in abandoning high standards, but in developing immunity to the paralysis of perfectionism. This requires a fundamental shift in how you view imperfection, not as evidence of inadequacy, but as proof of courage. When you understand that imperfect action consistently outperforms perfect inaction, you create the psychological safety necessary for genuine growth and creativity. Think of imperfection not as a flaw in the process, but as an essential feature of it. Just as a plant grows through a process of constant adjustment and adaptation, not through perfect execution of a predetermined plan, your growth requires engagement with the messy, unpredictable nature of actual experience. This perspective liberates you from the exhausting pursuit of flawlessness and invites you into the dynamic reality of growth through action. Rather than waiting to be perfect, you can begin taking imperfect actions now, understanding that each step, regardless of its outcome, builds the foundation for your development. The key lies in developing what I call failure immunity, not an absence of mistakes, but a resilience that allows you to learn and grow from them, rather than being paralyzed by their possibility. This immunity develops not through avoiding imperfection, but through deliberate exposure to it. Much like physical immunity strengthens through controlled exposure to challenges. Your pursuit of perfection has been consuming the very energy needed for genuine growth. By shifting your focus from flawless performance to courageous engagement, you liberate yourself to begin the real work of transformation. The question isn't whether you're ready, it's whether you're willing to embrace the imperfect path of actual growth. Chapter 15: The Boundaries of Self-Compassion. Building on the foundation laid in previous chapters, let's explore how self-compassion serves as both nourishment and protection for your personal growth. Like a garden that requires both tender care and strong boundaries, your relationship with yourself needs this same balanced approach. What if true self-compassion isn't the soft, permissive force that many assume it to be? Consider how it actually requires strength to maintain healthy boundaries, even and especially with yourself. This balanced self-compassion means having the wisdom to know when to be gentle and when to be firm, much like a skilled gardener who understands both nurturing and pruning are essential for optimal growth. The concept of balanced self-compassion fundamentally differs from both the harsh self-criticism many mistake for discipline and the indulgent self-coddling that can be masqueraded as self-care. When you operate from harsh self-criticism, you create an internal environment of threat and judgment that activates your stress response, making it harder to learn, grow, and take meaningful risks. Conversely, when you fall into permissive self-coddling, you may avoid necessary challenges and accountability, stunting your potential growth. Our culture often perpetuates this confusion by equating self-criticism with responsibility and drive. From an early age, many internalize the belief that being hard on themselves is the path to achievement, and that self-compassion is somehow weak or indulgent. This creates a distorted understanding where pushing yourself through shame and judgment feels like the only path to growth. Yet this approach fundamentally misunderstands how humans actually develop and thrive. Psychological research consistently shows that people perform better and grow more sustainably in environments of safety and support rather than constant criticism and threat. This same principle applies to your internal environment. The way you relate to yourself directly impacts your capacity for growth and transformation. The distinction between compassionate accountability and punitive accountability is crucial here. Compassionate accountability means holding yourself to standards while acknowledging your humanity, understanding that mistakes and imperfections are not moral failings, but natural parts of any growth process. Punitive accountability, in contrast, uses shame and harsh judgment as motivators, creating an internal environment of threat that actually inhibits learning and growth. You might worry that being compassionate with yourself will lead to complacency or lowered standards. But consider this perspective shift. What if self-compassion actually enables greater achievement by creating the psychological safety necessary for taking risks and learning from failures? When you trust that you'll respond to yourself with understanding rather than harsh judgment, you become more willing to step out of your comfort zone and tackle challenging growth opportunities. The difference between self-critical motivation and self-compassionate motivation profoundly impacts both your experience and your results. Self-critical motivation operates through fear and judgment, creating stress and anxiety that drain energy from actual growth and progress. Self-compassionate motivation, however, inspires through understanding and encouragement, creating an internal environment conducive to sustainable development. True self-compassion includes both the nurturing warmth that supports growth and the protective strength that maintains healthy boundaries. It means being able to say no to self-destructive impulses while still maintaining an attitude of understanding toward the needs or fears driving those impulses. This balanced approach creates a sustainable foundation for transformative growth. This transformation in how you relate to yourself ripples out to affect every aspect of your life. When you cultivate an internal environment of balanced self-compassion, you naturally become more resilient, more willing to take meaningful risks, and more capable of maintaining consistent growth over time. This shift in self-relation becomes the fertile soil from which all other positive changes can grow. The key lies in recognizing that self-compassion isn't about lowering your standards or avoiding challenges. It's about creating the optimal internal conditions for meeting those challenges effectively. Just as a garden needs both sunshine and rain, both fertile soil and strong fences, your growth requires both gentle nurturing and firm boundaries. This balanced approach allows you to maintain high standards while acknowledging your humanity, creating the conditions for sustainable transformation. Chapter 16: The Hidden Power of Awareness. Like light entering a dark room, awareness has a transformative power that changes everything it touches. When you first illuminate a space that has long been dark, you don't need to actively change what's there. The mere presence of light transforms your relationship with everything in the room. What if awareness itself, not effort or technique, is the primary agent of transformation in your life? You've likely experienced moments when simply becoming aware of a pattern immediately began to shift it, without any conscious effort to change. Perhaps you noticed how you habitually interrupt others, and that awareness alone created a natural pause in your speech. Or maybe you recognized a recurring emotional reaction, and that recognition itself created space around the pattern, loosening its grip. This is the essence of transformative awareness, the understanding that conscious attention itself becomes a catalyst for change, without requiring additional intervention. While many approaches to personal growth focus on complex techniques or structured methodologies, they often overlook the profound power of simply witnessing our patterns without judgment. Think of how often you immediately rush to fix or change something the moment you notice it about yourself. This reactive impulse, while natural, often keeps patterns locked in place through the very energy of trying to change them. It's like struggling against quicksand. The more you fight, the deeper you sink. But when you bring simple awareness to a pattern without immediately trying to fix it, something remarkable begins to happen. Awareness creates a crucial space between stimulus and response, interrupting automatic patterns and creating room for new possibilities to emerge. This space, this moment of conscious recognition, is where real transformation becomes possible. Without it, you remain caught in reactive patterns, operating on autopilot even in your attempts to change. Consider the difference between reactive awareness and present awareness. Reactive awareness notices patterns only after you've already responded, leading to regret or self-criticism. Present awareness witnesses patterns as they arise, creating that vital space for choice before reaction. This distinction is crucial because transformation happens in the present moment, not in retrospective analysis. You might notice resistance arising to this approach. After all, it can feel counterintuitive to simply witness painful emotions or limiting patterns without immediately trying to change them. The mind often protests, but shouldn't I do something about this? Yet this very impulse to immediately act often reinforces the patterns you're trying to escape. What if trying to change yourself often strengthens the very patterns you're trying to transform? Consider how focusing on changing yourself implies that something is wrong with you as you are, creating internal conflict that actually blocks natural growth. Real transformation emerges not from self-improvement but from self-understanding. When you shift from a change-focused approach to an awareness-focused approach, you stop treating yourself as a problem to be fixed. Instead of immediately trying to correct what you notice, you allow transformation to emerge naturally from continued witnessing. This doesn't mean becoming passive. Rather, it means trusting in awareness itself as an agent of change. The practice of pure witnessing, observing thoughts and emotions without identification or resistance, creates an environment where natural transformation can occur. Like a knot that begins to loosen simply by bringing attention to it, patterns that may have seemed fixed start to shift under the light of awareness. This transformative power of awareness reveals a paradoxical truth. Change happens most readily when you stop trying to force it. By simply witnessing what is, without judgment or agenda, you create the conditions for natural transformation to occur. Like a flower blooming in its own time, your authentic self emerges not through force, but through patient attention. When you release the grip of constant self-improvement and allow yourself to simply be seen, something profound shifts. This understanding leads you to recognize that authenticity, being true to your nature, emerges naturally from non-judgmental awareness. Your true self doesn't need to be created or achieved. It only needs to be uncovered through the gentle light of your own attention. Chapter 17. The Authenticity Advantage. The exhaustion you feel might not come from doing too much, but from being too little of who you truly are. Consider for a moment the energy it takes to maintain a facade, to constantly monitor your words, adjust your behavior, and shape yourself to meet others' expectations. This perpetual vigilance creates a draining form of self-surveillance that depletes your vitality and dims your natural light. When you spend your days performing rather than being, each interaction becomes a calculation rather than an expression. You carefully measure your words, calibrate your responses, and maintain an image that feels increasingly distant from your authentic self. This gap between who you are and who you present to the world creates what I call a congruence deficit, a state of internal misalignment that silently drains your energy and undermines your effectiveness. This depletion isn't just psychological. It manifests physically in tension, fatigue, and a persistent sense of holding back. Your body knows when you're out of alignment, even if your mind has rationalized the compromise. The energy required to maintain incongruence between your inner truth and outer expression creates a form of chronic stress that no amount of rest seems to cure. The alternative, authentic alignment, offers an unexpected competitive advantage in both personal and professional realms. When you align your outer expression with your inner values, you tap into a renewable source of energy I call congruence energy. This is the natural vitality that flows when you no longer need to maintain a gap between who you are and how you present yourself to the world. Many fear that authenticity will weaken their professional standing or social connections. They've learned to prioritize impression management, crafting a persona based on others' expectations, over authentic presence. But this approach fundamentally misunderstands both human nature and professional excellence. True authenticity isn't about unfiltered self-expression or disregard for context. Instead, it's about maintaining alignment with your core values, while skillfully navigating social and professional environments. The distinction between impression management and authentic presence is crucial. Impression management focuses on controlling how others perceive you, requiring constant monitoring and adjustment. Authentic presence, on the other hand, emerges from a clear connection to your values and truth, allowing you to remain genuine while appropriately adapting to different contexts. This shift from approval-seeking behavior to values-driven behavior transforms your relationship with both yourself and others. Rather than exhausting yourself trying to be what everyone else needs, you conserve and direct your energy toward meaningful contribution and genuine connection. This doesn't mean ignoring others' needs or social norms. Rather, it means engaging with them from a place of authentic strength rather than adaptive weakness. The process begins with honest self-assessment. Where in your life are you maintaining facades that no longer serve you? What roles have you taken on that feel increasingly distant from your true nature? Which relationships or professional situations require the most energy to maintain an expected image? These questions aren't meant to prompt immediate radical changes, but rather to illuminate areas where small shifts toward greater authenticity might release trapped energy and increase your effectiveness. The practice of congruence checking involves regularly pausing to assess whether your actions align with your deeper values. This isn't about dramatic revelations or sudden transformations. Instead, it's about developing a gentle awareness of moments when you've drifted from your authentic center and making small adjustments to return to alignment. Consider the areas of your life where maintaining incongruence consumes the most energy. Perhaps it's in professional situations where you've adopted a persona that feels increasingly restrictive. Or maybe it's in personal relationships where you've carefully curated a version of yourself that others have come to expect. These areas of misalignment aren't character flaws. They're often intelligent adaptations that served a purpose, but may now be limiting your growth and draining your vitality. The path to authentic alignment isn't about wholesale rebellion against social norms or professional expectations. Instead, it's about finding ways to honor your truth while skillfully navigating the very real demands of work and relationships. This might mean expressing disagreement more directly while maintaining respect, sharing perspectives that differ from the group while remaining collaborative, or setting boundaries that protect your values while considering others' needs. Authenticity, properly understood, becomes a source of resilience rather than vulnerability. When you're aligned with your values, you make decisions more quickly, recover from setbacks more easily, and connect with others more deeply. The energy previously spent maintaining incongruence becomes available for creativity, problem solving, and meaningful contribution. Chapter 18: The Legacy of Transformation. Your transformation ripples far beyond the boundaries of your individual life, touching countless others through an invisible web of influence that extends across time and space. When you expand your awareness and step more fully into your potential, you're not just changing yourself. You're contributing to the evolution of human consciousness itself. Consider how every significant shift in your perception, every limitation you transcend, every moment of expanded awareness becomes part of a larger tapestry of transformation. Each time you choose growth over comfort, authenticity over approval, or presence over distraction, you're not just making a personal choice. You're creating new possibilities in the collective field of human potential. This understanding transforms the very nature of personal development work. What might appear self-focused on the surface actually serves as a crucial contribution to our shared evolution. When you clear your perceptual filters, question limiting beliefs, or expand your capacity for presence, you're not just changing your individual experience. You're demonstrating what's possible for others. The impact of your transformation moves through your relationships like ripples in a pond. Your increased presence allows others to feel more deeply seen and understood. Your expanded awareness creates space for others to access their own wisdom. Your authentic expression gives others permission to embrace their truth. Your courage to grow inspires others to explore their potential. But the influence extends even further, affecting future generations in ways you might never directly witness. Your transformed perspectives become part of the cultural inheritance you pass forward. The limitations you transcend need not be faced again by those who follow. The wisdom you embody becomes a foundation others can build upon. This broader view of transformation often provides the sustained motivation that purely personal goals cannot maintain. When you connect your growth to purposes larger than yourself, you tap into a deeper source of commitment. The inevitable challenges of transformation become meaningful stepping stones rather than mere obstacles when viewed through this expanded lens. Consider how your current growth edge might serve others. How might your increasing capacity for presence affect your children or future generations? How could your expanded awareness influence your professional sphere? What becomes possible in your community when you access more of your authentic power? The practice of impact visualization helps embed this understanding. Take a moment to imagine your transformation as a light that gradually brightens, touching first your immediate circle, then expanding to illuminate wider spheres of influence. See how your shifted perspective might create new possibilities for others, even those you may never meet. This understanding transforms personal development from a solitary journey into a profound act of service. Every internal shift you make, every limitation you transcend, every moment of expanded awareness becomes a gift to the collective. You're not just changing yourself. You're participating in the evolution of human consciousness itself. By viewing transformation through this lens, we recognize that growth is not something that happens to us, but through us. We are simultaneously the alchemist, and the material being transformed in the crucible of conscious awareness. Our personal journey becomes part of humanity's larger journey toward expanded consciousness and capability. This perspective offers a powerful antidote to the isolation that can sometimes accompany transformative work. While the inner journey may feel solitary at times, understanding its broader impact reveals how deeply connected we are in the process of growth. Your transformation matters not just for you, but for all whose lives you touch, directly or indirectly, now and in the future. As you continue your journey of transformation, remember that each step you take creates new possibilities not just for yourself, but for others. Your growth is not separate from the world's growth. It's an essential part of our collective evolution. In this light, personal transformation becomes one of the most significant contributions we can make to the future of human consciousness. Conclusion. As you reach the final chapters of this journey, pause to acknowledge the profound territory you've traversed. Through 18 chapters, you ventured beyond the familiar confines of your perceptual prison, questioning assumptions that once seemed like immutable truths. You've discovered that transformation doesn't require adding more techniques or strategies to your life. It emerges naturally from shifting how you perceive yourself and your possibilities. Consider how far you've come. You've explored the hidden patterns in your identity garden, recognized the invisible scripts directing your choices, and learned to see through the perceptual filters that once limited your view of what's possible. You've discovered how comfort zones that once provided safety can become constraints, and how relationships mirror aspects of your self-seeking integration. You've confronted the illusion of permanence that keeps you bound to outdated versions of yourself, and embraced the transformative power of presence. Throughout this exploration, a fundamental truth has emerged. The very challenges you've been fighting against often contain the seeds of your greatest growth. The perspective alchemy you've learned isn't about denying difficulties, but about transforming your relationship with them. Freedom arises not from controlling external circumstances, but from expanding your internal capacity to respond creatively to whatever life presents. You may wonder if these insights will fade with time, returning you to old patterns of perception. But transformation creates its own momentum. Each shift in perspective generates ripple effects that reinforce and extend the initial change. Like a stone dropped in still water, your expanded awareness continues to influence how you see yourself and your possibilities long after the initial insight. The perceptual prison you once inhabited has revealed itself as an illusion maintained by habitual patterns of thought. The identity garden you've been tending can now be cultivated consciously, with awareness of which beliefs to nurture and which to let wither. The alchemy of perspective has shown you how to transform perceived obstacles into stepping stones toward growth. Remember, you have always possessed the capacity for transformation. What you've gained through these chapters isn't a new ability, but rather the key to unlock what was already within you. These insights aren't external tools, but revelations of your innate capacity to reinvent yourself through the power of perception. As you close this book, recognize that transformation isn't a destination but an ongoing journey. The understanding you've gained will continue to deepen and evolve as you apply these insights in daily life. You are both the alchemist and the material being transformed in the crucible of conscious awareness. The adventure of self-discovery and growth continues with each moment, each choice, each shift in perspective. Your transformation has only begun. The real journey lies in living these truths, in continuing to question your assumptions, in remaining open to new possibilities. The path ahead is not about becoming someone new, but about revealing more of who you've always been, beneath the layers of limited perception. Thank you for listening to my audiobook. Thank you for listening to my audiobook. You've taken the first step. Now go write your story, one action at a time. You've got this.